The first winter after my uncle disappeared was quieter than it should have been. Not peaceful, just empty. Snow piled against the tree line behind our cabin, rising higher every week, swallowing the old logging trails that used to cut through the forest. The wind carried no animal sounds anymore. No birds, no distant elk calls, just the slow creak of branches bending under ice. My Uncle Evan had lived here alone for years. He said the forest needed space, that it listened better when there weren't too many people talking at once. When he stopped answering calls, I volunteered to check on the place. Everyone else made excuses. The roads were bad. The weather was worse. Someone said they'd go in spring. Spring felt too late. The cabin looked wrong the moment I saw it. Not damaged, not broken into, just watched. The windows were dark, but I had the uncomfortable sense that something inside was already aware of me standing there. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the air smelled old. Not rot, not mold. Something dry, like cold leather left too long near a fire that never burned. My uncle's journals sat open on the table, pages warped from moisture. I didn't read it yet. I didn't want to know what he'd been writing in the last days. That night, I heard footsteps outside the cabin. They didn't crunch in the snow. They dragged, slow, heavy, careful. I told myself it was a deer, or wind-shifting branches, or my imagination, already too deep in the woods. Then something passed in front of the window. It was tall enough that its shadow crossed the ceiling. I didn't sleep that night. The footsteps circled the cabin until dawn, always just out of sight, always stopping when I moved, as if listening for me the same way I listened for it. At first light, I stepped outside with my uncle's rifle. The snow was untouched. No tracks, no broken crust, no signs of anything heavy passing through at all, except one thing, a line in the snow, shallow but unmistakable, stretching from the tree line to the cabin wall, like something long had been dragged behind it. Not a tail, not a rope, something stiff. I followed it into the woods until the trees closed in tight enough that the light thinned. That's where I found the bones. They were cleaned too well. No gnaw marks, no tearing. Every joint separated neatly, arranged in a rough circle. In the center lay a deer skull, split clean down the middle. Antlers twisted unnaturally backward. The smell was stronger here, dry, bitter, familiar, in a way I couldn't place. I heard my uncle's voice behind me. Don't look at it too long. My body locked before my mind caught up. The voice was wrong. The words were his, but the rhythm wasn't. Like someone reciting a sentence they'd only heard once. I didn't turn around. "Evan?" I asked. Silence stretched behind me, thick enough to feel. Then, footsteps again. This time, they didn't stop. I ran. Branches tore at my jacket as I pushed through the trees, the rifle banging uselessly against my shoulder. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay where I'd heard that voice. The woods changed as I moved deeper. The trees grew thinner, taller, stripped of lower branches, like something had passed through repeatedly at the same height. The snow beneath them was uneven, packed down in long, narrow paths that curved and doubled back on themselves. Paths made by pacing. I slowed when I saw the shed. It stood crooked in a small clearing, roof caved in on one side. My uncle had never mentioned it. The door hung open, swaying slightly, though the air was still. Inside, I found scraps of clothing. My uncle's coat, his boots, everything laid out carefully, folded as if someone had tried to remember how humans stored their things. Pinned to the wall was a page torn from his journal. The handwriting was frantic. It learns by listening. It practices when it thinks no one is there. It doesn't eat like an animal. It eats like hunger itself. Something exhaled behind me. Not a breath. A release. Like lungs emptying after holding too much air for too long. The temperature dropped instantly. I saw it reflected in a broken piece of metal on the wall. Its head scraped the ceiling. Its limbs bent where they shouldn't. Its mouth hung open, but it wasn't biting. It was smiling, and it was wearing my uncle's voice again. I fired without thinking. The shot shattered the quiet, echoing endlessly through the trees. The recoil slammed into my shoulder, and for a brief, stupid moment, I believed I'd solved everything. Then, the thing stepped forward. The bullet hole was there. Clean, perfect. It didn't bleed. It tilted its head, studying the wound like it was curious how pain was supposed to work. "Not like that," it said. My uncle's voice cracked halfway through the sentence, stretched thin over something deeper. The smell intensified. Cold metal, old blood, hunger. I ran again. This time toward the cabin. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or the idea that walls still meant something. The forest chased me. Branches snapped behind me. Not randomly, but in rhythm. Long strides. Too long. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. When I reached the cabin, the door was already open. Inside, the journal lay open to a final entry. I hear it walking when I sleep. I hear myself answering it. I don't know which one of us is hungry anymore. The footsteps stopped outside. The cabin shook as something leaned against it. Wood groaned. Nails screamed. Then came the knocking. Slow, polite. 3 taps, just like my uncle used to do. I held my breath. The knocking stopped, replaced by silence so complete my ears rang. Snow slid off the roof in soft avalanches, the only sound left in the world. Then the voice came again. Closer, softer. "I'm cold." It didn't sound threatening. It sounded tired. I thought of all the nights my uncle had spent out here alone, listening to the forest speak back to him. I wondered how long it had taken before he realized the replies weren't his thoughts. The door handle turned slowly. I backed away, rifle shaking in my hands, until I hit the far wall. The window beside me creaked as pressure pressed against it from outside. A shape passed behind the frost. Too tall, too thin. The door opened an inch. I smelled it fully then. Not decay, not death. Starvation. The thing paused, as if considering something. Then it withdrew. The door closed. The pressure on the window vanished. For several minutes, nothing happened. I dared to hope. Then, I heard it behind the cabin, tearing something apart, chewing, bone cracking, deliberate and patient. I understood then that it wasn't trying to get inside. It was reminding me that it could wait. The storm hit at dusk. Snow fell sideways, erasing the world beyond the cabin walls. The power died shortly after, plunging everything into darkness, broken only by the fire I barely managed to keep alive. That's when the whispering started. Not outside, inside the walls. The voice spoke in pieces, fragments of my uncle, memories I hadn't shared out loud, jokes we'd laughed at years ago, conversations I'd forgotten. It was trying to sound like family. The fire flickered. The room felt smaller. I heard something shift behind me, close enough that I felt movement disturb the air. When I turned, the room was empty, but the whispering continued, now coming from my own mouth. I clamped my hands over my lips, heart hammering as words pushed against my teeth, desperate to escape. Outside, something howled. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't anger. It was relief. The thing had learned enough. They found the cabin in spring. The door was open. The place was empty. No body, no blood. Just a journal left on the table. Pages filled in a familiar handwriting that wasn't quite right. The last entry read, "It doesn't chase. It waits. It listens. And when you're empty enough, it walks out, wearing your voice." Sometimes, hikers report hearing someone calling for help deep in those woods. A man's voice. Calm, familiar, saying all the right things. The search teams never find tracks, only long drag marks in the snow. And sometimes, if they listen closely, they swear the voice sounds like someone they know, or sometimes like themselves.